Ladies and gentlemen, ni hao. Welcome, ni hao. Yeah, well, 4 years of Chinese training, that's all I come up with. Yeah. Welcome to the last session of the day. A good hour and a half before we take you off to the gala dinner. But it's going to be worth staying awake for. It's going to be worth making it through to the happy hour. I assure you of that. My name is again Christopher Ludwig, and I'm the editor of Automotive Logistics. Maybe a little special welcome as well. It's about time, at least in Europe, when people should be waking up. So we're streaming this session live. So hello to those viewing outside of China as well. Short kind of housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, we have the gala dinner directly out after this session. There will be coaches that will be leaving outside the hotel, which we'll be directing you towards. The venue is not far. It's only, I think, 15 minutes drive. So please do join us for there. You will notice on your tables in front of you evaluation forms. These are actually really important to us. We really value your feedback. Your comments on what you liked, what you didn't like, what you would like to see more of. We really take the feedback from that very, very seriously. If you're not going to be here tomorrow, then make sure you fill it in and give it to a member of staff, or even leave it on the desk and we'll pick it up. Obviously, if you're going to be here tomorrow, then you might want to wait to reserve some of your judgment for the full day. There will be a prize draw at the very end of the conference. I think it's a bottle of champagne or something, which we'll be giving away as an incentive to fill in those evaluation forms, so please do so. Okay, our last session of the day, the development of logistics service providers. I think this is actually a very important subject and session, especially when you consider the current policy discourse in China about reforming the economy, driving added value and market-led services. I think with very good reason, as you heard this morning in the opening session, logistics is really a key area of focus in this. And I think it's important that we take some time to understand concretely what some service provider issues are in China and hear about what they're planning for the future. Again, maybe I'll just give my perspective. As editor of a globally focused magazine, I try to keep a close eye on logistics provider development in China. I can't say, of course, that I'm an expert. I'm not based here like you. But I can see the comparisons between markets. And what I can say, I think, from my interactions with Chinese and joint venture OEMs and logistics providers, is that actually the development here is very impressive, especially whether you're comparing it to another emerging market like India or Brazil, where the infrastructure lags so far behind, the service quality is perhaps poorer, and there's no multimodal services to even really think of in many cases. I think in China, you see despite a very fragmented market in many ways, the automotive logistics providers, there really are some powerhouses and sort of full scope of services, whether it's in-plant logistics, material handling, organizing milk run collections, import, export, multimodal distribution, which we're starting to see increase. So I do think that service development is actually quite impressive. We heard, and I don't think that the words that we heard from NDRC and some others this morning about evolving from logistics managers into supply chain managers, I don't think those are just words. I actually do think that's what's starting to happen. It's certainly what OEMs tell me they want to see happen. They want to see their providers go in that direction. So I do think that's quite important to note. I think it's also interesting to note the development of Chinese logistics providers outside of China, some moving into more global markets, whether it's consolidating material in Europe and bringing it to China, or exporting to Russia or ASEAN or other markets. So that's something that also is interesting, and which I think our panel will actually be able to address quite well today. But I'm not trying to suck up to the panel either. I think we all can recognize that there are issues that need to be addressed, whether it's poor IT and visibility, systems, subpar reliability in some services, non-standard transport equipment such as the trucks that we know so well, and a fiercely cost-driven approach. Sometimes the focus in price seems to be very aggressive and can compromise quality. I was in Shanghai last week, and I don't think there was a company I mentioned that didn't tell me that staff turnover and human resources is one of their biggest issues. They can't seem to hold on to people. There are skills issues, salary demands. So it's a very complicated picture. It's not the worst problem to have, but it's certainly something that I think service companies, especially like logistics providers, really need to consider in how they're developing their skills and their staff. Obviously, the market is very complex between homegrown providers, OEM-owned subsidiaries, dozens of joint ventures serving individual plants. It's a pretty complex picture, and I'm not sure that it always comes together to form the most efficient consolidation and production networks that we might otherwise see. But nonetheless, as I mentioned, I think it's still quite an interesting development along the way. And as I think some company pointed out to me last week, producing and selling 22 million vehicles, they must be doing something right. So, I don't think you have to take some pause on that as well. So again, that's just a few points from my side. We've put together a panel here, which I actually think really reflects well, or can reflect well on the logistics provider market in China, whether it's global companies, joint ventures, Chinese companies, OEM-owned, inbound, outbound. There's quite a full spectrum here. I'll just take a moment to introduce before we get going. We're actually going to start with a presentation from Nathan Ullrich, who's the Terminal and Inlet Service Director for Wallenius Wilhelmsen Logistics Shanghai. We'll also hear from Changan, who's the Vice President of Changjiu Logistics. And then everyone else is a panel member. We'll have some, I'm sure, introduction and some opening questions, but we're going to have hopefully quite a lively Q&A. We're fortunate to have with us Dr. Xiaodong, the professor at Transport College, Beijing Jiaotong University, who some of you may have seen already moderating a few sessions today. We have Yang Min from Changan Minsheng Logistics International. And also joining us is Guofang, General Manager of the China Railway Special Cargo Logistics. So again, quite a spectrum of services there, of pedigree, and I think perspectives as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to first start with the presentation from Nathan, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So thank you, Nathan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past 12 years, China has experienced a huge growth in domestic car sales. Today, I'm going to talk about that growth and how, as logistics service providers, we need to balance the growth with quality and cost efficiencies to better service our customers and the industry. Okay, just getting organised. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Nathan Ullrich. I've spent the last 20 years in all forms of the automotive industry, from designing parts, building cars, working in the last 10 years with the Wallenius Wilhelmsen Logistics in the logistics side of the business. For those that don't know us, Wallenius Wilhelmsen Logistics, or WWL as we're referred to, offers global coverage for the automotive, high and heavy and break bulk services. We use our vast assets of 61 modern fleets of vessels, roll on, roll off, I should say, 58 vehicle processing centres, 12 terminals and large trucking fleets to deliver the supply chain solutions to our global OEM customers. We move a combination of around 4.3 million units a year through our service network and for our valued customers. But I'm not here to talk about my company. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to talk about the impact that this growth has had on the Chinese market, on the logistic market as well, and also to start to think about what do we need to think about to sustain this growth, what do we need to think about to sustain this logistics industry moving forward into the future. Due to this huge growth, service providers have had to be innovative and find unique solutions to accommodate the market demand over the years. Part of these solutions include unique transportation methods, one-directional thinking in regards to training and employment, and very basic quality and system standards set for drivers, logistics staffs, and tracking abilities. Our quest as logistics providers today is we still see these unique solutions in operation, and it's now time to ask a number of key questions. Are these old and new methods sustainable in our industry? Are they really optimising costs? Do they meet the customer's requirements? Do they comply with safety regulations, and are they endangering people and product? Are they having a negative impact on the environment? Are we developing our staff to the industry standards and competence? And are we continuing to find new solutions? And from a customer's perspective, if we are to change all this, will it have a cost impact to me and my business and me delivering cars? Moving forward, we'll review some of these items to try and answer these questions and understand that if we need to find the balance between sustainable growth, quality and cost. As an example, let's start with lead time and cost efficiency to get a better view of the logistics business. One example that we'll start off with is basically the larger trucks. So by having a larger truck, can we carry more cars and create efficiencies? Sounds like a reasonable statement to me. But can we go too big or alternatively too small? Where is the balance? Once we dig a little deeper into this, we can then start to understand the question. As by having a larger truck, this can create some complexities and actually be less efficient throughout the entire supply chain. For example, compounds have to be larger to accommodate the larger trucks, which means unutilised land that you're paying for that is creating no revenue. It's an added cost to your business. The larger trucks cannot access cities, particularly during the day. Thus, trucks are parked and being underutilised. Again, another cost. Due to this, the majority of the product is dispatched from a compound on a smaller truck, then moved to a transit yard where the product is discharged and stored before being reloaded onto a line haul. The line haul movement is then carried out with a reverse process taking place close to the final destination. So when we assess this, the car has had dwell time in 2 transit locations. It has been loaded at least 3 times and unloaded 3 times. This has also increased the risk of damage and requires further pools of resource for the processes and the repairs to take place. And we have underutilised both land, personnel and equipment. We now have direct costs for yard management, increasing risk in damages, which again impacts our lead time. Is this cost taken into consideration? So this all can impact our lead time and most importantly delays for you, the customer, picking up your new car at the dealership and the OEM receiving their revenue for the manufacturing of that car. The longer the car sits or moves between the factory and the final purchaser, the more the cost the car must accommodate for. To mitigate these potential delays, some OEMs increase their stock holding. This means that not only do they have large amounts of product in transit, they also have large amounts of cash packed in a compound, adding further costs with interest. And some of the presentations that I was witness today, they spoke quite heavily around this area. A car sitting means a car is costing interest to the manufacturer. So how can we help our customers? Through quality management systems and investment in developing the competencies of our staff, we can plan and execute our supply chain in a more cost-effective manner. Through these intelligent systems and training, we can measure the lead time and the lead time waste or dwell time. This then allows us to determine the best method of transport. Then, through the strict process management tools such as standard operating procedures and time per activity studies, we can close the lead time gap, which provides overall cost savings, as well as measure our manpower usage to fully drive optimisation. Other mitigating factors to reduce lead time and costs include conducting regular audits of the process and equipment to reduce downtime. These are all key factors in being competitive while providing a quality service, which is key to our customers' business. By also having alert systems through the enhanced track and trace tools, we can also manage individual cars throughout the supply chain and provide enhanced visibility to our customers. Tools that manage our business while provide value to our customer. Our goal to create an environmental friendly and sustainable industry is to follow the manufacturing principle of OEMs by removing waste. This includes lead times, costs and investments. The principles of measuring the supply chain can be and have even been done by a number of OEMs and suppliers, where they have removed the reliance on drawing from large stock pools and have pushed towards strict planning in manufacturing and dealerships to deliver the product in a time and sensitive manner. This requires a reliance on strong supplier partners who are willing to meet the tight deadlines and strict KPIs set by the OEMs. Suppliers must continue to look at innovative ways to fully understand and measure the entire supply chain, to reduce lead times, optimise staffing and provide further value to the customer without impacting costs. After listening to the other speakers today, we all have the same theme, that is to improve the logistics network within China. Thank you for your time today. Let's continue to work and create innovative measuring tools and processes and multi-modes of transport to further understand optimal logistics solutions to assist us and our valued customers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nathan, for that insight into some of the sort of, let's say, higher value services that we can see on outbound. Before we go into the Q&A, I think that Changan has a slide and some introductory remarks to make, so I'd like to invite Changan.
我用中文来讲，因为我呢，因为时间原因呢，我只
Chinese,
讲
due to the time constraint, I will only talk about one slide. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, self-introduction. I am a frequent speaker at this conference, so I'm an old friend of Louis, and in US and Germany, we also attend such activities and speak. Over the past years in FAW, Volkswagen, I used to be in charge of logistics, so I have my own observations. And after I joined Changjiu, in the headquarters, I was in charge of finished vehicles logistics every year, and for several years. And then I joined Zhongshi International Logistics Company. I was responsible for its preparations. And now it has been founded with hundreds of millions of revenue with several business segments. It is a joint venture. Since the theme of this session is development of logistics service providers, so I would like to offer you some observations. First, I worked in OEMs, and then I worked in the logistics service providers. I have different perspectives. OEMs, especially Chinese brands, mainly they have three pressures on logistics service providers. First, they will transmit the cost pressures to logistics service providers. They ask you to minimize the cost anytime, always. They do not have justifications, and they don't care about the impact of cost reduction on quality. They just give us a target, for example, every year, 10% cost reduction. They simply give us this target and don't give us any justifications why such a target. So logistics service providers have to face up to this challenge, and sometimes they are not compliant with the laws and regulations just to meet that target. And second, they will also transmit the pressures of market fluctuations onto us. In recent years, our overall projections are accurate, but the micro projections are not. Over the past several years, in different stages, market fluctuations. For example, the Chinese brands, OEMs, own production fluctuations. They want their production to be very flexible. Therefore, they want to have full flexibility from logistics service provider. For example, I just received a call. I received a call from a client to increase my staff by 200 people to provide services to him. This is simply a requirement from him, just telling us that after 1 month, you dispose of those 200 people yourself. I don't care. You just give me 200 staff during this month. After that month, what will happen? I don't care. They do not put themselves into the shoes of yours, because they have to cope with the requirements from the market. And third, they give you impressions to ask you to have 100% openness or transparency. They even want to look at your book of accounts. They just, through this, want to ensure the reliability of the services. We can understand, however, for logistics service providers, this is very difficult. I have been running a logistic company for 2 years, from millions of revenue to hundreds of millions of revenue. So currently, the 3 challenges for logistics service providers are: costs have been reduced to the extremely low level, and I am still asked to reduce the cost further. This is the first challenge, especially for production logistics. En route logistics is not completely relying on equipment. It's labor intensive. Labor costs have been rising, and other costs are also rising, and they are still asking us to reduce the cost further when it has been reduced to extremely low level. For example, every year 5 to 10% reduction. This is a big challenge. And second, while the cost is low, they want to have high quality services. They want to have low cost and high quality all at the same time. The brands, the OEMs, they have been benchmarking with their competitors. So they hope after the benchmarking, they want to have services of the leading level in the world. Services of the leading level quality of the world. For example, not long ago, a client asked me about the spare parts. They want the accuracy of the spare parts to reach 99.995%. That is to say, every 100,000 pieces of parts, only one can be inaccurate. This is a big pressure, a very strict requirement. But the costs, according to me, are only limited. They want both extremely low cost and the extremely high quality like that of Toyota. You know, for finished vehicles logistics, every year during the peak period, for example, before the New Year's Day, due to the weather and due to centralized procurement, sales volume will sharply rise. So they have very high requirements for logistics support. For example, implant logistics, normally it's 100 trucks every day for delivery of the second day. However, during the peak day, they still have this requirement. But due to the weather conditions, especially in North China, due to the snow, we find it very difficult and challenging. Even if you are providing such services with a very high cost, still they are not satisfied. And thirdly, the enterprise operations and management information. You know, one logistic enterprise can serve multiple clients. It has to keep some of the data confidential. For enterprises, this is one of the core competitive edges. However, some clients want us to share all of our data with them without any reservation. If you do not share fully, then they will think your services are not good enough. these are the three challenges for logistics service providers. Now, how to cope with these three challenges, I can share with you some examples. In China, I think communication, maybe not the top #1 productivity factor, but it is at least one of the most important factors. I mean, effective communication at different levels. It's not just about communication and transactions. China do business involving the emotions different from Europe and America. I used to work in the States. But after I came back to China, I've been back in China for more than a dozen years. But in China, relationships can address a lot of problems. So, effective communication based on friendship, emotions. I'm telling you this, speaking from experience. Through such communication, you can enable the clients to understand you, and to a certain extent, it can meet the expectations of the client. So for logistic enterprises and OEMs, not just the top-level communication, but effective communication at all levels. This is very important for logistics service providers. And second, outsourcing and in-house. Which option do you go? For example, we are providing packaging service for exports for a client. A client is a major exporter of automobiles. Every year, it will export around 100,000 vehicles. So it gives this business to us, the packaging business. For me, if I use all my in-house staff, only, no matter how I calculate, I'll be suffering from losses because they will constantly ask us to minimize the cost, to reduce the cost. So I did some outsourcing. The outsourcing service provider operations, some of the practices may not be in line with the policies, but they are very flexible. For example, we used some interns and some temporarily hired staff who work on an hourly basis. Very flexible. Only in this way can we reduce the cost further according to your requirements. And third, we need to constantly make innovations. I can also share with you some examples.
And we got one client. He got a plant in Dalian, and they produce one model. And each dealer would not get more than 10 units of this model. So if I deliver the model to each distributor, I have to go to different distributors, lots of dealers, because this plant is located in Dalian, and we have our Ro-Ro ship, which is in operation in Shanghai. We got two under construction through the Ro-Ro ship. The model was transported to Shanghai, and then we put other models on the same ship, and so that each ship can get a full load to one distributor, and so that we can lower our costs. So if I do a good planning, so that I can lead to a better lead time and better utilization of our logistic equipment. We don't need to go to 6 dealers, 5 dealers one time. And secondly, we are doing some experiment with OEM. Take Nanjing Mazda as an example, and they have they have a sole supplier to provide one part to be provided to suppliers, and then the OEM would use. So they are doing effective management on the different tools, and for us. For each model, we also do the planning and the design and manufacturing, operation and maintenance and scrapping of the tools, so that OEMs do not need to worry about whether there are sufficient tools or to satisfy their needs. They do not need to spend extra energy. They do not need to worry about loss from of the tools. And we do a close loop management of the tools. And this tool was for Mazda in Nanjing, and we are negotiating with another client in Changshu, and another one in Wuhu, and another in Hangzhou. And they can share some of the tools within 400 kilometer radius. They can share the same tools. So that the tools or apparatus can be better utilized, and so the cost can be driven down. Another example is we have a client who is from Germany, and they send about the 10,000 ETUs, and their tools got a wooden package or paper package, and we are suggesting some pallets to replace their equipment, so that there will be more environmentally friendly, and that can give us better profitability. And that would also, because sometimes OEMs try to drive down the costs, and which would drive you to do non-compliant things, or but if you do not want to be non-compliant, they have to come up with alternatives, and so we have aviation, transportation. We also have a railroad transportation between China and Germany. So our clients can make a choice between aviation and railroad. Railroad only takes about 10 days from Germany to China, and we can also do integrated shipment, and spare parts cannot be gathered together to be delivered in one shipment, and that way we can lower the costs. And we are discussing with our European client, a truck company. We are to start a relay logistic service, and so these are innovations for us to get more benefits. So in the long term, in automotive logistics, we are a private-owned enterprise. We got established 22 years ago, and now we have a total turnover of dozens of billions of RMB. But the main thing is for Changjiu logistics is innovation. So what I'm sharing with you is our experience in innovation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Changan. I think that was a very honest, open presentation, really highlighting to us both what the company is doing and some of the challenges it's facing. I think the realities in China. We really appreciate your honesty and openness there, and thanks for kicking off our discussion like this. Before I move into the Q&A, maybe I can ask our other panelists who haven't yet spoken to sort of briefly introduce themselves and their roles, and maybe give us your sense, maybe some of your current challenges as a provider. Obviously, Professor Zhang, you would have a slightly different comments from that side. But so maybe if we can start with Ming. Do you want to just introduce yourself outline some of your roles, responsibilities, and current challenges? You can do it from there if you like.
好的。
You want whatever you want, whatever you want.
OK。好的。我先自我介绍一下。我
A
来自
self-introduction. I'm from the Chan Minsheng Logistics International from Chongqing. We do automotive logistics. We are dedicated to automotive logistics. We got established in 2011. We serve mainly the Changan Auto Works, in-plant, exit-plant, logistics and other logistics. I agree with what Mr. Changan said. He talked about three kinds of pressures. And for us, that we also feel strongly these three kinds of pressures. He mentioned several challenges which I also feel strongly about. Let me supplement with my personal experience. In our work, we feel some challenges or conflicts. One is quick development and the capability for providing services. Secondly, is costs and high standards and high quality. Thirdly, is the standard and the regulations by the government. So these are some contradictions, several pairs. And we have been developing for 12 years, 13 years, and these are some challenges, bottlenecks, and we are trying to improve on these bottlenecks. And regarding the development of logistic providers, I want to talk about 2 points. One, I believe Jeffco presenter said the quality of the service is something permanent. Only after our improvement, we would be able to enjoy huge profits. And be talking about our company and also my role. I believe the enhancement of the standard of our service, and we have improved our models. We have made improvements on processes, and we have adopted new models. We adopted multi-model transportation. We have the multi-model linking land with the river and then ocean to satisfy the needs of our customers. And secondly, in providing services, we needed to be predictive. We needed to emphasize long-term because the standard of our service should be preemptive to the needs of customers. We should not be pushed by customers. We should help come up with solutions proactively for our customers. That's all from me. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Xiaodong. I'm from the Beijing Jiaotong University. I met lots of old friends here. To summarize what I've learned, in the morning and in the afternoon, we have different moderators. As pointed out by Mr. Changan, we are going to talk about development of logistics service providers. In the morning, we talked about distribution center planning. Second, in the afternoon, we talked about the multi-model. And in automotive logistics, in China's logistic markets, the operation of companies, all the legacy problems have been not quite resolved, but we are faced with new problems as well. After decades of reform and development, China's logistic infrastructure has been built. We think we are entering a stable development stage regarding infrastructure. And by reading the 12th five-year plan, we can see this. And in between 12th to the 13th five-year plan period, we would see lots of upgrading of different industries, and that would give us lots of opportunities in transportation, in logistics, and in automotive logistics. The infrastructure is more up to standard, but how to utilize this infrastructure, how to develop better our operations and services. We have opportunities for OEMs, for logistical companies. We also have opportunities for transportation companies to be transformed into logistic companies. They are faced with pressures as well. And secondly, I'll be talking about some common challenges by China's automotive logistic industry and other logistic industries. Dai Ding also talked about this issue in the morning. To summarize, I believe there are three points which have reached a consensus, especially for automotive logistics. One, as mentioned by Mr. Changan, that is, we have increasing costs, but we have lower fees, and this is a conflict which squeezed the profitability of logistics companies. So it's difficult for them to have new inputs into expanded services. Secondly, there are fierce competition, whether it's between OEMs or the third-party logistics. We need to grow. We need to grow, or do we need to set up JVs with other parties? So organic growth and M&A is a conflict, it's a quandary. And not only in the domestic market, but also in international market, because we have more manufacturers going overseas, and logistics have to follow. And do we need to set up our presence ourselves? Do we get into a partnership with a foreign logistic partner? And there's a worry that is that our partner may take over our market, but to make all the investment would be difficult for myself. So how to make the choice? That's a difficulty. Thirdly, especially in Chinese market, there are illicit and lawful operation. And I guess you are clear-minded about that. Last year, China's the 18th Party Congress, they did some top designing or designing at the top. They emphasized the role to be played by the market and the role to be played by the government. And they covered everything, but how should we operate? And after half a year's elapse, we are still waiting to see. We are waiting to see a fairer competition environment. That's the expectation of enterprises, but enterprises have some frustrations as well, because you heard a big thunder, but the raindrops are still minor. And that's a difficulty to come up with a solution. And just like Anji, just like Changjiu Logistics, including the China Railroad Special Logistics, they have their experience.
So we know the overall trend. I think this trend has four elements. First, the successful logistics service provider. If you only wait, that's not enough. You must have self-redemption. Relatively successful enterprises have blazed a new trail. I can summarize in the following sentences. First, they realized networking operations. If you only have one single point, that's not enough. You must have your own consolidation centers, distribution centers, and logistic parks at different levels. Second, integrated operations. No matter in this network, it's directly operating ones, joint venture ones, rented ones, or borrowed ones. Through integrated operations, we can increase the efficiency. China's logistics automobile logistic market has developed, extended from finished vehicles, logistics, to spare parts, to parts and components, to second-hand vehicles. So in terms of building a closed loop for the supply chain, it has been established, but the operations are still sometimes in silos. We need to integrate them. And third, the application of ICT technologies. In the sessions I moderated today, experts have talked about application of IT technologies, IT platforms. A lot of logistics service providers have made use of such technologies, and so did OEMs, for example, MRP, MRP2, ERP, and comprehensive information platforms now. How to realize the information sharing and networking between one logistics service provider with multiple OEMs to bridge the digital gap. There are still some barriers by the OEMs, but if you can break down the barrier to connect the upstream and downstream manufacturers, distributors, and logistic enterprises, this is something must do. And thirdly, being more professional. From scale expansion to quality improvement, so that you can have your own positioning in a certain niche market, your own specialization, decision making for optimization, integration of operations, so that you can have more sustainable development. This is my summary of the my judgment in the transition from the 12th five-year plan period to the 13th five-year plan period in China.
Thank you.
好，我先自我介绍一下。
First of all, self-introduction. I'm a China Rail Special Logistics Automobile Logistics company's Gangfeng. I'm both the board chairman and general manager. We are affiliated with China's Railways Special Cargo. We are wholly owned subsidiary by that company. In 2011, the Special Cargo Company of China Rail had a reorganization. We began to change to become to regional operations. 14 branches were established by the headquarters together with original branches and the 2 subsidiaries. We totally have 18 branches and subsidiaries. There are 3 business segments at the head office. One is the commodity and automobile railway transportation, and second, cold chain transportation, and third, super size, extra large commodity transportation. We have also undertaken the responsibility of transporting the bridges for railway construction. In automobile and commodity transportation, railway transportation vehicles, we have 2,500, and now we have added 1,000, and this year we will have 1,000 and more, according to our plans, so that railway vehicles can have adequate capacity. In addition to that, we are studying the vehicles for commodities and commodity vehicles and general cargo. We are having a pilot, and in the future, we are studying or researching models for heavy-duty trucks. This is the status quo, and in 2006, it is not until 2006 we began to undertake a commodity vehicle transportation. In that year, we only transported 50,000 vehicles. I give you these figures because the commodities we transport through railway, for example, automobiles, it's not that they didn't exist before. It's just that after the market is opened, the previously truck transportation model was no longer suitable. The railway transportation at that time was not suitable. All of them used trucks. But starting from 2006, we began to use railway to get back to the market. We also developed some new vehicles to undertake railway transportation. After years of effort and the support of OEMs and logistics service providers, in 2006 we transported 50,000, and last year it's 1.2 million. And this year we plan to transport 1.4 million vehicles. As Dr. Zhang has mentioned just now, I think our development has been very fast because railway development is constrained by some factors. First of all, transportation capacity, it must be running on the gauges different from roads, from highways. We are also under great pressures. Like Mr. Chen has mentioned just now, we are also confronted with three challenges or three pressures. Cost pressure is the first one because in terms of the railway transportation, when we entered or got back to this market in 2006, due to some non-compliant practices of the highways sector, the price level is not very good. Their price is not a reasonable one because they are not compliant compared with railway. And second is the fluctuations pressures. For railway, we highlight the importance of balance because if the transportation capacity is wasted, it's not storable. And for us, we are under great pressures because of this. At the beginning, after 2006, sometimes we had cargo but no capacity to transport. Sometimes we had the sometimes we had the capacity but no cargo for us to transport. There is a mismatch. But after years of effort and the support of OEMs and logistics service providers, basically we have been transforming. The railway advantages began to show. After years of efforts, I think railway have the following advantages in transporting commodity vehicles compared with highways. First, green and environment friendly. Railway transportation is more advantageous than that by highways. This railway advantage is incomparable by highways. For commodity vehicle transportation, 50% to 80% are done by railway, while in China, the percentage is only between 10 to 20%, between 10 and 20%, less than 20%. So I think there is further space for growth of railway transportation. The potentials are there. This is the first advantage of railways. And second, railways can realize large-scale mass transportation. Therefore, railways for commodity vehicles can play a vital role, especially in the future. And thirdly, the capacity to resist natural disasters challenges. And fourthly, I don't know whether you have seen railway compartments are fully enclosed. After goods are loaded, after the door is closed, in the whole process of transportation, even little stones cannot hit inside the railway cars. This is very important for the safety and reduction of damage of the automobiles. And fifthly, the time limit, the timeliness can meet the requirements of OTB. The main disadvantage is services at the two ends. We are making efforts to improve. But in terms of the time, the lead time, I think the lead time is even shorter than that of highways. And, you know, we have yards or stations in every place of the country. Therefore, for nationwide networking and nationwide networking transportation of commodity vehicles, we can be the fastest and most efficient. And seventhly, China Railway special cargo transportation of commodity vehicles is the most simple, because we can provide whole process agency, whole process service, and whole process logistics end to end. If you have transportation needs, you can just use China Rail special cargo for everything you need to do. For example, the China Railway formalities, we can go through them for you. The transportation, we can do it for you. We have the fleet from the order is put to delivery to the 4S stores. We can do it end to end. So we can do end-to-end logistics. And I think our services in that regard is as good as those provided by highways. And eighthly, the IT platform. Through years of transportation of commodity vehicles, we have established a series of platforms to realize inquiries, track and trace of the automobiles transportation across the country. You can get to know the location, the status of the automobiles. You can track and trace them anytime and anywhere. You can have track and trace through the internet. So I would say, after years of efforts, the logistics transportation of commodity vehicles really have those advantages. Of course, it also has its disadvantages.
We may have more loading, unloading in comparison with trucks. And another thing is in setting up our system, we now have 14 subsidiaries plus 3 cold chain subsidiaries. And now we are covering the whole country. Automotive logistics, our automotive logistics network covers the whole country, including some third-tier, second-tier cities. And besides these businesses, starting from this year, we are introducing some new projects or programs, export programs. Starting from this year, we are trying to experiment railroad linkage between freight linkage between China and Kazakhstan in freight transportation, and with agreement between the ministries of railways between the two countries, the railways will be open up between the two countries. And if you have these kind of needs, please contact me. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Sincerely there, because everyone, I think, gave a really honest perspective of the challenges that they're facing, and I'd like to open it up now for question and answer or comment. Anyone who wants to make a comment, any OEMs, for example, in the room that want to respond to things that the panel has said, you're also welcome to do that. Obviously, we have dual translation, microphone. So, any questions to start from the floor? In the back. Just wait for the mic and then say your name and company. Mr. Huang from Magna.
Couple of questions. One is to the railroad service, the other one's to all the logistics companies here in the audience and up in the forum. Okay? Number one, I heard 10 points or close to 10 points about advantage of using railroad. The question is, when we expect the railroad service expand to auto parts, Magna, you know, is world's number 3 auto suppliers. Number two, challenge to all the logistics providers, 3PL, 4PL. The logistics conference I've been attending back to, since 2007. I'm not attending everyone, but I'm attending a few. Also, the professor mentioned that now they start expand their focus from finished vehicle to auto parts. Any logistics providers can provide a good, really good case study that working with the tier 1 suppliers, not OEM. I'm not saying I don't care, but I don't really, because Magna is tier 1. And the OEMs working with us, like the tier 1s only. But, tier 1s, we're working with the companies, most are small. So anyone can provide a good case study, that a successful story about working with tier 1s in China. I would like to listen, and I would like you come to me. Also, I probably save that for tomorrow's panel discussion as well, but I just say it today. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So the first question was to Mr. Gao, when are you thinking to expand railway services to other parts of the supply chain, like tier 1, and then we'll have the other panel address the case study question. So I don't know if Mr. Gao would like to respond. Yeah.
Let me answer your question in a brief way. Currently, we have not covered the first tier, the component suppliers, so we have only finished vehicles for our business. As to expand to first tier, component suppliers, and we have been doing reforms on railroad system. We have set up distribution. We have set up warehouse centers, and we are going to include auto parts in these centers. So when it will be realized, it will take some time more, because railway. Why components, parts have not been covered by us? Because you have very stringent time requirement and zero inventory, and also you needed to just-in-time requirement. And this is our disadvantage, that is just-in-time. Only on certain trunk lines we can realize that. And for example, Sinotrans, they can realize that. For China Railway, China Railway Logistics, we cannot realize such just-in-time standard. We don't have this kind of capability yet, and therefore we have not covered the first tier yet. Thank you.
So does anyone want to respond on the second side? Obviously, you can speak to Mr. Wang more privately to give them the case study, but does anybody want to talk about operations that they've run and done for tier 1s that's been successful in China?
Let me
follow up what Mr. Gao said. Due to time constraint, I did not share with you some of the services that Changjiu is providing. Starting from October in Hamburg, we set up our subsidiary in Germany, and so that subsidiary is to serve OEMs in Europe, and to transport parts to China. And they have a daily schedule to do the transportation. So we are providing this kind of services for tier 1 suppliers. And so it takes 18 to 20 days to transport the first tier parts to China. So we are doing this. So this is number one. Secondly, we are making preparations to provide logistic services for first tier, for tier 1 suppliers who are exporting to Europe. And some tier 1 suppliers, like Bosch, they have set up their plants in China, and they needed to ship parts to Europe to serve OEMs to provide VMI services. And we have these kind of preparations in place, and we have a partner in logistics in Europe, and our seamless partnership can provide better services for Tier 1 suppliers who are exporting parts to Europe. And secondly, as I mentioned, we are provide the circular package for this OEM in Europe, and they ship 20,000 TEUs, and we can utilize the pallets to do reshipping, to do ship back to Europe. And domestically, for example, in Anhui province, we are also providing some warehousing and distribution for first-tier suppliers. So, and I hope that in China we can better utilize the route between China and Europe. We can provide a better two-way logistics services. Thank you.
我补充一下吧，我们长明
A little bit. So we are located in Chongqing, the Changan Minsheng, regarding our partnership with first-tier suppliers. This is a permanent topic for us. And those at the present, you are the first-tier suppliers. For example, Changmin, Minsheng, together with Xinke and Changjiu and others. And this kind of a partnership can make up for each other's weaknesses in providing better services for customers. And for this, we have a very positive attitude. And through the partnership with first-tier suppliers, we can be mutually supplementary. And we are improving our capacity. But in IT, in technology, in specialty, we do not enjoy many advantages. So we want to get opportunities to partner up with you. Thank you.
Thank you also for the question. Any other questions from the audience right now? Okay, I'll go back perhaps to the cost issue that was raised by Mr. Chen and also everybody else we heard this morning as well. Logistics growth, but margins are low and seeming to be crunched even harder. Would you say that in China there's variation in this cost-focused approach between different kinds of OEMs, whether it's joint venture or whether it's the local Chinese or import-export? I mean, is the price focus, is the price culture different across your customer base? So we can start with Nathan.
Oh, look, it's a very good question. I think what we found through our experience with inside WWL is that when the customer first enters China, is cost is not such a key issue. But I think that the market with inside China, whether it's automotive logistics or anything else, is extremely competitive. And so therefore the OEMs tend to get into that same trend as the local manufacturers, the local different markets where they really start to drive for cost. And it does create a lot of challenges.
Thanks for that. Mr. Yang, you want to comment on that? Do you see? Yeah. Yeah, it's on.
Let me add something regarding cost focus. Really, in automotive logistics, as mentioned by others, really to drive down costs is a permanent topic, including our customers. Changan Auto Works, for example, they try to lower costs for logistics every year, but we have increased the costs, labor costs, and equipment costs, and also more regulations also means bigger costs for us. But but we can improve our service provision capabilities, and we can better streamline some processes, and we can optimize certain nodes so that to save costs. So we have some room to save costs. Thank you.
Anyone else on the panel want to comment on that, on the cost issue, particularly, like I mentioned in the beginning, the differences between your customer base, whether some may be more or less cost focused? If there's any other comments, we welcome. If not, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, maybe not. Any other? We have a question in the back.
Well, again, that's me. Another question to the logistics company and also its challenge. I asked that same question in the last year's China Automotive Component Conference. Now we're talking about cost. And when we say cost, we need to understand the base, cost base. I'm from purchasing. So my challenge to the logistics companies here, I'm a straightforward question. When I try to get a quote from any logistics company in China, and I have never got a clear price breakdown. They can say everything's going up for the labor, the material, the whatever. The gas, the whatever is going up. But what is the base? And no good cost breakdown. If no cost breakdown, there's no way to save, right? So I guess the question is, when can we expect the Chinese logistics company can provide your customer a clear cost breakdown? Thank you.
Thank you. Who's going to step up to that?
我来回答这个问题吧。
I would like to respond to this question. I don't know which company you are from. I hope I can become a supplier of yours, because for each of our clients, be it Land Rover or BMW, and also some local Chinese brands, for example, Cherry, their quotation requirements are so detailed that it's like they want to know the cost of how much money each of our staff spend every day, and they will ask us to provide 6 rounds of quotation. They want to have full transparency of the information of our company, and then cut down the management expenses and profits. Some clients, they ask us for such a quotation. I'm not telling you which client it is. For logistics service providers, information transparency is a big problem. We don't want to hide any information. However, the information they asked for is for the basis of quotation. They asked us to fill out 10 to 20 pages of forms, and then they will single out the management expenses and profits. Cut off these 2 things as the basis for quotation. So when I am setting the quotation strategy, I have to rack my brains. It is inequality because of the mismatch of information. I don't know which company this gentleman is from. I would like to become your supplier, because if I only have to quote a general sum of price, that will make me so happy.
So again, the company's Magna International. Yeah, so. Okay. Anyone else want to respond there? And if not, we have any other questions in the audience? Okay, another one from my side. I mentioned in the beginning that I had been hearing a lot from various providers, but also from manufacturers about human resource issues, so training, staff turnover challenges, things like that. Mr. Chen, you referred to having to hire and then fire 200 people inside of a month, so obviously you also face some difficulties here. You mentioned things like interns and temps, so there's some solutions for flexibility, but clearly you also want to develop highly skilled and motivated and long-term employees. So you want to talk a little about what your strategies are for retention of staff and for training? And Nathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. It's another very good question. Staff retention is key. Also, the developing of the staff and building them up into competent staff members who can who can manage our business on a daily basis. One of the key things that I've found coming from, I guess, what I would call a developing or a developed industry from Australia is that, you know, we build from the ground floor up. So our guys who are doing the logistics business out on the shop floor, washing cars, maybe doing very minor PDI on cars, they soon to develop their competencies. Then they're the next supervisors. Then they, over time, as they continue to develop and become into the next managers. Here there is a very different cycle of employment. A lot of this is based on, and like my colleagues have said, it's a big challenge. A lot of it is based on the fluctuations of the product coming inbound and outbound. It is difficult to have 30 people available one day to manage an influx of product, and of course then we don't have anybody or any product for the next 5 or 6 days, basically. So therefore your indirect labour or your direct labour is adding cost to your business. Our strategy moving forward is that currently we do use a pool of labour, but our strategy moving forward, and one of the key focuses that I'll be working on in 2014 is to focus on actually employing labour from the shop floor up and start to develop the competency at the very base level, because these are the guys who will have the experience. They'll have the experience with the product, they'll have the product knowledge with the cars, with the equipment, etc. And I think that's where we've got to start from.
Thank you, Nathan. Anybody else want to talk about what their companies do for staff retention, training?
I would
like to add something. In terms of staff retention, the concept we are using is from the perspective of loyalty and flexibility. We combine both. For key posts, we highlight their loyalty. We provide some development opportunities, training opportunities for their career development to retain them. On the other hand, for basic skills posts, we will cooperate with labor supply companies so that for such posts requiring only basic skills, we can have flexible staffing to meet the flexibility requirements of clients. Thank you.
I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add anything. If not, any other questions from the audience? Oh, we have one in the back there. If you could just say your name and company.
各位来宾，各位主持人，大家好，我是来自本田汽车，就是
Honda
制造商负责。
OEM responsible for logistic planning. I have a question for Mr. Chen and Changan Logistics colleague. Currently, with the mainstream logistics service providers, when we are cooperating with them, there is a gaming process. OEMs are paying a lot of attention to increasing logistics efficiency. Sometimes we just hand over a plan for the logistics service provider to execute. It's like a strategic partnership. I want to know, for local logistics service providers, how do they foster their own talents for logistics planning and strategy making? Thank you. That is to say, whether you have paid attention to foster your own talents, or you just execute the OEM's logistic plans. Because OEMs, we also have our concern, because if the logistics service providers' planning capacity is stronger and stronger, then the execution of our planning may be challenging. I think Changan, Minsheng Logistics, and Anji are in a better position to respond to this question. For logistic companies affiliated with OEMs and independent service providers like Changjiu, we have different development orientations. For example, for Anji, its priority is logistic support for its OEMs, the overall planning of the OEMs it's affiliated with, and then when it has ensured this, it can provide services to other clients. Well, for Changjiu, we are a completely independent logistics service provider. Therefore, our planning and strategy are based on our position as a third-party logistics service provider, the services that we can provide. Therefore, for a single point, as Professor Zhang has mentioned just now, it is using networking expansion and innovations to reduce the supply chain cost. While OEMs, for OEMs, we will try to be compatible with OEMs logistic planning, but we will not completely obey. I would like to talk about briefly Changjiu logistics plans. I'm very happy that we have a director for development planning, Mr. Zhou, and another manager present from our company talking about planning. If necessary, we can also have face-to-face communication with them about our company's planning. For Changan automobile logistics, we have our own logistic planning in our company. However, we also pay close attention to joint planning with Changan automobiles. Together with Chang'an, we try to understand their needs, their plans, their goals, so that we can do correspondingly our logistic planning, so that we can elevate our capacity and acquire new capacity. Thank you.
Question as well. Any other points or questions from the audience? Kind of following on that a little from my side, in terms of coping with the growth in China, if you take Changan as an example, you know, Changan Ford grew 50% or something last year, so huge growth. I mean, how much of a challenge has it been for you to keep up with that? To keep up, have you had to rely more on subcontracting, for example, using other providers? And if so, how are you auditing and monitoring the quality of your subcontractors? And I think that's a point that others could pick on as well. Maybe we start with Changan, Minsheng, and then move on to the panel.
Thank you. You mentioned Changan Ford. Changan Ford is one of our clients. They are also having delegates present today. Last year, their growth was huge, like a star company. Changan Minsheng Logistics are catching up with the needs of their growth. We have done a lot. First of all, transportation capacity. We have elevated our capacity. We have procured some vehicles, some trucks, and warehousing capacity, delivery capacity, finished vehicles, transportation capacity have all been expanded. And we're also pushing ahead actively cooperation with Tier 1 distribution suppliers to meet the needs of clients. Thank you.
Just, have you also done more subcontracting as well? This is also still for Mr. Yang. To meet that growth, have you had more subcontracted providers that you've been working for, or have you been able to meet that demand within your group?
Yes, indeed. We did some subcontracting. However, in the subcontracting process, we have strictly monitored the whole process to ensure the needs of clients are met and the quality is also met, safety is met, and we also have dynamic monitoring. We have some such measures.
Anyone else want to comment on the subcontracting? I bring it up because I know that it's quite common in China and there's many complex levels of it. So I think it's probably a challenge for many to really have visibility on some of those quality points. You want to start, Nathan?
Yeah, look, part of our business and what we spoke about before is the fluctuations of supply and demand from our OEMs is, you know, we need strong suppliers. We rely on them quite heavily. And one of the mitigating actions that we do inside our organisation is that we've implemented a quality department, and basically that quality department, it actually shares best practices from around the world. So what we're doing in Germany, we share with our Chinese colleagues. What we're doing in China is we're sharing with our US colleagues. And together with this global quality department team, is we've implemented a specific way of working in which that, for example, when we talk about trucking, we carry out audits on the majority of the trucks that come through our facilities. So prior to them actually entering our yard, we check those trucks. We have a 20-point checklist, and they've got to pass that checklist. If they do not pass that checklist, they do not take the product. It's as simple as that. So we're working with our suppliers. They understand that, I guess, our terms of business. We're working with them, and what we're doing with them is we're actually developing their business as well. So we're helping them increase their quality to also assist our OEMs.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Maybe last question from my side on rail. So I say both to Mr. Gao, but also to Professor Zhang if he wants to comment. Last year, as we talked about in the last session, there was some reform separating the responsibility from the rail ministry and from the business side. I just wondered how or if that has had any impacts for your company, Mr. Gao, in terms of the services you provide or your strategy or your investment plan or whatever it might be. And Professor Zhang, if you wanted to comment on that in terms of any changes you think it's having or it will have in the future.
Railway reform for railway transportation of commodity vehicles, up to now, there is no impact on such transportation. In my introduction, I have mentioned in 2006, we began to be market-oriented. The Ministry of Railway and China Rail, we undertake two roles. We are both the carrier and also the shipper. Therefore, for business operations, we do not have any impact from this reform. And before we became market-oriented in 2006, actually we were already undertaking the responsibility of providing logistics services for OEMs. Therefore, after now, we are still having this role. Therefore, the whole transportation business after the railway reform is not impacted. However, the railway reform did have some positive influence on us. For example, planning submission, organization of transportation, pickup of goods upon delivery. Such things are more accelerated after the railway reform. I would like to respond to this question regarding the impact of railway reform on other industry, including automobile industry. Last year when we had the conference in Shanghai, I already made a general introduction. The reform has two directions.
This new round of reform is about the division of responsibility between the ministry and the general company of a railway, and the railway is the biggest which got a total asset of over 1 trillion. And in the past 10 years, we had a lot of investments in passenger transportation. Freight transportation, there's still a big gap. And therefore, this round of reform is to enhance freight transportation capacity. And by looking at the objectives, I can summarize in 4 lines. One is better convenience for customers, and once if we want to have a forward services by the railway, it's difficult, and you need to do lots of bagging. And now they have set up a online platform to make application for freight forwarding, and so you can, as customers, you will enjoy better convenience for freight forwarding. And secondly, the operation of the railway system is constrained by capacity. So they want to optimize their capacity, and they do not quite respond to the demands from customers. Last year, the total mileage reached 100,000 kilometers. kilometers by the end of the 12th five-year plan. That is in between 2016 to 2017, except for Lhasa. All the other cities will be linked by high-speed railways. And that means some legacy capacity will be shifted to freight transportation. And by that I will see a fundamental change. So this new round of reform requires the railway system to respond better to the requests of customers and the needs of customers. And once you have to make you have to give them 1 month advance in noticing them your requests for transportation. But now you give them the one day notice, 1 day advance notice. In key areas, I believe also including the first tier suppliers would be covered by the railway transportation. And for the first tier cities, you can expect 24 hours delivery within 24 hours. And also another change is the punctuality of freight transportation is something new for China, and so you can have high expectations for this new round of reform. Thirdly, it changed its fee collection scheme. Besides the trunk line transportation fee, you also have to pay for service for processing at both terminals. And now they are going to reform on the fee scheme. They would give you a lump sum price, and that's it. And in the morning we heard about a taxation regime reform, and the railway system will also do some reform on its fee scheme. And in February, they have a price surge. And after that, we believe that the pricing scheme will be marketized, and that's another expectation you can have. And lastly, regarding the services and core products, they are going to emphasize door-to-door services, and which is in line with the needs of OEMs and also component suppliers. And the railway system is making explorations and in operation, and because last year the railway company is more independent, and they are they got into more partnership programs with OEMs, and they got into a more partnership with logistic companies as well. And so the Sinotrans and also the China Railway Specialty Logistics. Some subsidiaries got kept, and so this new round of reform translates into good news for us, for the operators in the market. Let me respond to a question early on. That is the railway service extending to the first-tier suppliers. And I believe that the railway system is doing lots of explorations, especially with logistic companies and with automotive JVs, and like the Nissan Dongfeng, they have set up a partnership with first-tier parts suppliers, and also Changjiu Logistics also have been doing a lot of explorations, and the railway have not railway has not been doing lots of explorations, and container, for example, belong to the container carriers, and now they have 18 railway bureaus, and the 18 railway bureaus will come up with an effective plan to cover the full supply chain of automobiles. I believe Shanghai and Guangzhou are doing some, running some pilot programs, and the Beijing Railway Bureau is also doing this kind of pilot program, and that's my answer.
I think we're gonna leave it there because we're gonna move on to the gala dinner. But a really healthy round of applause for our panel because I think they gave us some great insights, took a lot of time with our questions. We really appreciate that. I think there's a lot more we can discuss. Obviously, the issue of rising costs, but crunch margins is a challenge for everybody. I can assure you that it's similar situations in other parts of the world. I can't name a conference where logistics providers are happy with the rates that they're getting paid by OEMs. So, but obviously, China has some very unique circumstances here. We're going to have our gala dinner this evening, so please join us for that. There'll be coaches outside. And we'll be back here tomorrow. Right from the start, we'll be split. We're going to have a supply chain session, and then opposite that, there'll be the CFLP conference, which will be focusing on finished vehicles. So we look forward to seeing you tonight, as well as tomorrow, and please come and enjoy the gala dinner. Thank you.